training is on the CCYA philosophy and how we serve youth in our care. I'm Kim Borna, the CEO. I hope that you will enjoy this training. The board of directors sets the philosophy for the organization. And our philosophy has been based off of several tools: Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the spectrum of attitudes, the interaction model, and the collaborative problem-solving model. These are tools that come from sources that we use, like the RCYCP curriculum from the University of Oklahoma and Think Kids, Department of Psychiatry, which puts forth the collaborative problem-solving model from the Massachusetts General Hospital. Our philosophy is documented in our CCYA governance policies and procedures, and it is also shared with the staff and our donors and our partners and volunteers. In order for us to understand and learn the philosophy for the Center for Children and Young Adults, it's really important that we sort of have a refreshery of some of those concepts that we've learned in our RCYCP training and our collaborative problem-solving training. One of those concepts is Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. This is one of the best-known theories of motivation for human beings. It provides a description of the needs that motivate human behavior. Back in 1943, Abraham Maslow proposed these 5 different kinds of human needs, beginning with the most basic at the bottom of the pyramid, being physiological needs, such as food and shelter and water. He built the pyramid up based on realizing that a pyramid has to be built on a solid foundation. One has to have those physiological needs to be met before one can feel safe. So first we want to make sure we're meeting our kids' physical needs. Then we want to make sure we're meeting their safety needs. And that's really making sure that they've come out of an environment that may have been chaotic or unpredictable, one that may have involved homelessness, abuse, neglect. It may have involved poverty. It may have involved violence. It may have involved many different factors. And we need to make sure that our kids in the environment that we're providing at the Center for Children and Young Adults is one that is safe, one that is predictable, one that provides an orderly and nurturing environment. The next step on the human needs pyramid is love and belonging. We all know that human beings need to feel a part of something and they need to feel mutual affection from others. And so often you may slide back down the pyramid when you've had a big loss, you've lost someone close to you, or if you've had to move away, or you've been removed from your home and now you're in a different school and you've lost your friend group. Because belonging to those accepting social groups is very, very important to human beings. And we need to make sure that we're creating an accepting social group for our kids at the center so that they can feel a sense of belonging. Whether that belonging is a group they find at school, but it's also belonging they need to find within their own home, which for now is the Center for Children and Young Adults. Next, they can achieve self-esteem and self-worth. But first, they have to have their physiological needs met. They have to feel safe and be in an orderly environment. They have to feel love and belonging before they can actually feel good about themselves. And we want them to achieve that self-esteem and self-worth. And we can see them almost achieving it and sliding back. We can see that a lot of these things below, losing the belonging or the love of someone, losing the safety or orderly environment, not having accessibility to water and food and good suitable shelter, those are things that can have them slide back and not be able to reach that self-esteem. Finally, on the scale we know is self-actualization, which we know that our children will not meet while they are with us. They are still young and they're working towards that throughout their development. But it's really important that we help them to build those solid base foundations within the hierarchy of human needs so that they can be on the path to achieving that. Meeting the needs of our youth has to be balanced against the needs of the milieu. The milieu is the environment in which the children are living. It's the daily living environment of our residential care. And one of the most important tasks of a youth care professional is to provide an environment that supports young people in learning new and more productive ways to meet their own personal needs. So yes, it's important that we meet the needs under the hierarchy that we discussed, but it's also equally important that we help our youth to learn how to meet their own needs. And that is a very important part to making sure that we're balancing their needs and the needs of the environment. Part of being able to balance the youth's needs and the needs of the milieu, the environment of the facility, is to make sure that we are working with young people as individuals and not as a group. One of the unfortunate things about residential care is that youth really do have to do most everything in a group. They eat in a group, they go on outings in a group, they travel to school in a group, they do everything as a group. And so it's really important that we find those opportunities where we can work with our young people as individuals and not everything as a group activity or group response. We also want to make sure that we're making the program work for young people rather than having the young people work for the program. And that can be a really tricky thing. And what we mean by that is making sure that we're not just constantly asking the kids to fit in to our program agenda, but that we're making sure that we are creating a program agenda that is working around the kids. So we need to look at what their strengths and weaknesses and needs are so that we can tailor it to them rather than trying to get the kids to just adapt to the program. And that's a really tricky thing for us to do, but it's something that we need to be very mindful of doing, and we need to find opportunities to achieve it. When you're meeting the needs of youth and you're balancing their needs against the milieu, it's important to note that the milieu needs to be one that is successful in practice, not just one that looks good on paper. So a milieu that is in good order supports the agency's written culture of care, but you can also see it. It's where you see young people and staff interacting with each other and where time is spent practicing new skills in order to help youth to meet their needs, but you also see staff helping meet youth's needs. So what you wouldn't want to see in a milieu is the young people sitting alone or wandering about while staff are in their offices. You don't want to see the living areas to be in disarray or not clean or in disrepair. And when you look around, look at your environment where you have your kids now, and do the only things you see on the walls are warning signs that are posted up as messages for the youth? And warning signs are things like, don't go beyond this point, don't put, too much soap in the laundry machine, keep this door closed, put this here, stay out of this room. Those are warning signs. We want to try to make the messages where our kids are living to be more positive. So try to phrase them in ways that say what you do want the kids to do, and not always just directives and orders about what they shouldn't do. If you think about it, kids living in a home and you living in your home, how many signs do you have posted up all over your house that tell you and your family what not to do? And think about how that impacts and affects these kids because they are living, at the center and in our care. We also don't want to see young people that are stuck in old, unproductive ways of meeting their needs, of yelling, cursing, screaming, tantrums. We want to be able to see that we are working with these kids using our collaborative problem-solving skills and our de-escalation skills. When you see a milieu with these things listed on this slide, it says something very different about what the real true culture of care is. So we need to be careful that those messages and the physical environment of what's going on is actually happening in accordance with how we're training that we want it to be. The next refreshery tool that we want to look at that feeds into our CCYA philosophy is the spectrum of attitudes. This too comes from the RCYCP training, but it also is a part of the collaborative problem-solving model. We want to make sure that the way that we're viewing young people, which in turn is how we treat them, is that are we treating them as objects? Are we treating them as recipients? Are we treating them as resources? Think of it like a stoplight. When we treat kids as objects, we need to stop doing that. When we treat them as recipients, it's kind of like a slow roll into treating them as objects So we want to slow down and see if we can redirect that into treating them more as resources. So it really is a spectrum, meaning that each of these falls on the spectrum. And as we try to work up and down the spectrum, we want to try to always be achieving treating kids as resources. So what does that mean? So this is the chart from the RCYCP training. So this is a good refresher on the spectrum of attitudes. So if we look at young people being viewed as objects, that's our red light. This is where the adult is in control with no intention of youth involvement. The objective is just personal growth of young people, but the byproduct is that there's just conformity of young people and the acceptance of the program as it is. So there is no actual growth. So they don't achieve the objective. Young people viewed as recipients, as we said, is the yellow light. It's sort of the in between the objects and resources on the spectrum. The adult is in control, but they do allow some youth involvement. So there is some positivity in this. It's not all negative. The objective is personal growth of young people, and the byproduct is there's some increased organizational effectiveness in that we are starting to let youth get involved, and so they're having some growth. Young people viewed as resources, though, that's the big green light. That's where the youth and the adult really form a partnership and there's shared control. The objective is increased organizational effectiveness, but the outcome is personal growth for the young people as adults. This is important to note. So look at your yellow and your green. The objective and the byproduct are flipped, which is really interesting because as much as we want increased organizational effectiveness, our real goal and outcome is personal growth of young people because our organization is not effective if we don't achieve that. And so we may be doing things as an organization that appear good and do give the youth some assistance, but what is that byproduct, that outcome? We want it to be personal growth of young people. Now let's break it down and look at each one individually. So, treating youth as objects. What's the attitude? I know what's best because I'm the adult, I have the experience. I'm doing good things for youth. But the youth do not get to participate in the experiences that could give them skills and help them grow. And again, you're doing things for the youth, and we want the youth to be able to do things for themselves. This starts to happen a little bit more under the recipients. So for the yellow light, what's the attitude? The youth will have input so they can feel involved, but ultimately, I have to make the final decision because it's my job and my responsibility. I'm doing good things for the youth. Here, again, the youth has had some involvement, but the adult is still really fully controlling it. And so we don't get the youth doing for themselves completely. It's still us doing for the youth. But finally, we see the full shift when we look at treating youth as resources. So what's the attitude? The youth and I are in partnership. I can define the purpose of the activity, but we will make decisions together. Majority rules. Here, I'm doing with the youth, so the youth can learn to do for themselves. Here, the youth have a learning experience that they'll be able to apply to their own lives when they leave the program. Youth are learning and practicing decision-making skills, which teach self-discipline. No matter how much we discipline them, if they can't learn to discipline themselves, then as adults in society, they continue to be and have poor behaviors. And that we don't want to see. So treating them as resources, also we're saying, I know that you have something to offer regarding your own life. And we want you to be a resource in helping you to guide and plan and fix the behaviors and work towards your future. So using people as a resource. I certainly wouldn't want somebody planning my life and my behaviors and telling me how things are going to be for me without taking in me as a resource and considering what I have to say and feel and offer to the learning experience. Now let's look at some examples. Ms. Steverson plans a weekend activities for Open Gate after taking a general poll of what they like to do. Ms. Steverson meets with Ms. McKinney and they make the final decision about the outing. What's the attitude? Treating youth as objects, recipients, or resources? The answer is recipients. Here they are considering and taking a poll and getting some input from the kids, but ultimately they're making the final decisions without the youth. Let's try another one. Ron, our life skills instructor, plans a life skills workshop on job readiness for all of the TLP residents without gathering any input from the residents. What's the attitude? Is he treating the youth like objects, recipients, or resources? Here, he's clearly treating them like objects. He hasn't gotten any input from the youth at all. As we all know, this is really not the way Ron does things, so I felt safe in using him as an example. Okay, here's another one. Melvin leads a discussion with AC residents about incorporating their various cultural traditions into the holiday season, the celebrations, and the activities. He helps the residents to develop a plan that the staff can support and fund, and they carry out these activities. What's the attitude? Is he treating the youth as objects, recipients, or resources? Great job, Melvin. You're treating the youth as resources. You're taking their input, you're helping guide them, but ultimately you're letting them make decisions and carry out the activities in partnership with you and the staff. Great job. Okay, let's try one more. This is a long one. The girls in Open Gate complain all the time about the food for dinner being too fattening. Miss Netta in the kitchen is tired of hearing about it, but isn't sure what to do. The girls keep making suggestions for meals, but some of them are too expensive or take too much time to prepare, or it's hard to prepare them for large groups of people. Finally, Miss Netta decides to have a meeting with the girls to discuss it. She tells them she would like their ideas, but they need to be within these guidelines. First, the meals have to be balanced with protein, vegetable, and starch, so they're not just going to eat salads every day. And second, the meals must be able to be prepared within an hour time frame. And three, they must fit in the budget. If this is the case, she's even going to help them prepare some meals through a cooking class. The girls brainstorm together and give 10 meal ideas to Miss Netta. She selects 7 of them to serve this week. So what's the attitude? Is she treating the girls in Open Gate as objects, recipients, or resources? Now that's great work, Miss Netta. Thank you for treating the girls as resources. You included them in the process, you took in their ideas, you used them, and now you're hoping that they're going to be eating some better meals and they won't be complaining about the fattening content of them. Great job, Miss Netta. Certainly, young people viewed as resources, it's the preferred style, but there will certainly be situations in which boundaries must be drawn, specifically in cases involving safety or when time is a constraint. But when youth are invited to participate, they begin to take ownership and they begin to take responsibility for what happens to them. It also makes them feel better about themselves. So they also start to work towards that self-esteem and self-worth. So the goal is always going to be to try to move the kids towards treating them as resources. In addition to planning their recreation, learning activities, meals and snacks, service opportunities, and other things and activities in their residential programs, youth should also be involved in planning and have input in their assessments and the development of their individual service plans. I'm going to be doing another video training on individual service plans because by now you all know that we've moved towards a different form and one that definitely includes the involvement of the kids. The benefits of this is that it gives power and control to the youth and it helps them to buy into these positive actions, that when we give them that power of positive actions, they start to feel good about that and it teaches them how to work towards more positive actions. Additionally, the youth are learning to problem solve with a caring adult guiding them while they're trying to identify what goals they need to work on, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what lagging skills that they need to develop. It also makes the youth feel good about themselves in the situation and builds that self-esteem and self-worth. So the goal should be to move towards viewing youth as resources whenever it's possible. So what does that look like? If you find you're not treating youth as resources, how can you flip it up? How can you turn it into treating them more like resources? Well, if you're headed on that red path to treating youth as objects, try to flip it up with a help me with this. With a, hey, can you give me your input? What do you think about this? Flip it up with some questions that start turning it more towards resources. Or if you're too far into treating them as objects, you may just flip it over to recipients. Well, I need some input on this so we can make a decision about this. But then always try to keep flipping it up and making it green. As many questions as you can ask for their help. So stop what you're doing, breathe, and think about, how can I get their input? How can I involve them? Let's move to the next resource that we found through our RCYCP curriculum, which is really important, the interaction model. The most powerful tool that all of us as youth care professionals have is ourself and the relationship that we can create with the youth and the way that we interact. Relationships that youth care professionals have with young people can provide the context for change to occur. And the manner in which we choose to interact with the youth, it says a lot about our milieu. Let's move now to the interaction model, another tool, a great tool that we learned from our RCYCP curriculum. This is really important because the most powerful tool that youth care professionals have, it's ourselves and our ability to interact and communicate with youth. The relationships that we form with young people in the care, while they're in our care, it can provide the context for change. And the manner in which we choose to interact with the youth, it says a lot about our milieu. Now remember that we choose our interactions with youth. So even if a youth is having a negative interaction with us, we can choose a positive interaction response, or we can choose a negative interaction response. So what we choose is also going to determine what their next interaction response will be. It's important to remember that every interaction has meaning. You must be aware of your interactions because your interactions affect the youth's identity and self-esteem, and they're just in the process of developing that identity and self-esteem right now. So you're interacting how that will be developed for them. Remember, to change behavior in youth, you must interact positively. So here's the math. Negative behavior from a youth with a negative interaction from a staff is going to equal in another negative response from youth. A negative behavior in youth with a positive interaction from staff is going to result in a positive response from youth. There's a much higher probability of that with this equation. A positive behavior from youth with a negative reaction from staff can turn that positive behavior into a negative response from youth. And finally, a positive behavior from youth with a positive reaction from staff is going to give you that positive response back. So always remember that to change behavior in youth, you have to interact positively. So think about your interaction messages. What do you think when you are working with our youth? Are you thinking it's an us versus them? One of us is going to win and one of us is going to lose, and because I'm the adult, oh, you better believe I'm going to win? Let's put an X next to that one. Are you thinking that loud demand statements, just do what I say, I said now, those statements are going to get the youth to have a response that's positive? Let's X that one out. Do you have an authority, look at me, I'm in control, I make the decisions sort of attitude? Let's definitely X that one out. Do you have a, hey buddy, I'm cool no matter what you do, whether you're doing right or you're doing wrong, I'm gonna be cool with it because I'm just here, I'm clocking in, I'm clocking out, and I don't want no trouble? Let's put an X next to that one. Are you an in the mood person? Today I'm here for you, but tomorrow I may be tired or busy. Put an X next to that one. Are you an ask me? If you don't ask, I can't help you. So constantly asking the kids, ask me how, ask me what you need, tell me what you need. Put a check mark next to that one. Nurturing advisor. I want to be helpful, I want to be supportive, and I want to help guide you. That's a definite check mark. And the final check mark is, are you less talk and more listen? Like, how can I help you today? Tell me what you need, and then just listen and let them talk without interrupting them, without trying to change around what they're saying or control it. Think about what your interaction message is when working with our youth. Remember, in the interaction model, interactions range from therapeutic to exploitive. As we review the interaction model, think about what type of interaction you've experienced most in your life. And what kind of interactions do you appreciate from other people? Therapeutic, exploitive, and have you experienced interactions in between? Also think about, how do you respond to a negative interaction? Think about this in your own life outside of working with the kids. Who do you seek comfort from when you are scared, mad, sad, or frustrated? Do you go to that person who lectures you? Do you go to a person who gets angry at you? Do you seek out a person who listens well? Do you seek out a person who tries to be understanding even if you messed up? Think about who you seek out and work towards being that person for our kids to seek out. Here's the interaction model from the RCYCP training. Remember what the therapeutic approach looks like. The messages are, I win and you win. You're worth my time and energy. You're important. You can and you're competent. Those are the messages that you're sending. You're assertive, influencing, and nurturing. That's your style. And identity development is regarding yourself, someone who cares about me, someone who's wanted, appreciated, and loved. The experience of self is connected and safe. You're making sure they feel secure and competent. And the expression of self is one that's caring and invested. It's open, it's self-confident, it's cooperative, and assertive. Now let's look at the exploitive approach. The messages that you send are, I win and you lose. You're worth nothing. You can't do anything right. You can't. You're incompetent. Your style is aggressive and passive aggressive. It's demanding. It can be abusive. Your identity development disregards self. It's no one cares about me. It's unwanted, unappreciated, and makes them feel unloved. The experience of self is alone, feel threatened, feel hurt, feel anger, feel fear. The expression of self is nonchalant, uncaring, tough guy, watchful, hypersensitive, sensitive to rejection, aggressive verbally and or physically. It's really important to take a look at this interaction model. Think about what messages in your interaction, in your communication, in your body language, in how you take leadership in your position, what messages are you sending to our youth? Let's make them as therapeutic as possible. The last resource that we're going to review and refresh before we start to take a look at the CCYA philosophy is our collaborative problem-solving model. Remember that collaborative problem-solving, or CPS as we call it, is a cognitive behavioral approach to addressing challenging behaviors in youth. So it's used to make sure that we are able to address these challenging behaviors while at the same time we're able to teach kids skills so they don't repeat these challenging behaviors moving forward. It's important to remember that the approach behind collaborative problem solving is that kids with challenging behaviors do not lack the will to behave, they lack the skill to behave. So the lagging skills that we want to teach are to help our kids improve their problem solving, their adaptability and flexibility, and their frustration tolerance levels. So while you're thinking about collaborative problem solving and while you're thinking about your interaction with youth, and while you are learning about our philosophy, it's important to remember that CPS identifies 23 lagging skills. So far, we at CCYA have introduced 5 of those skills. We've got some posters in the main entry. We're giving kids posters, a poster on which skill they've chosen on their individual service plan to achieve, because we really need them to focus in on one lagging skill at a time. The first 5 we've chosen, just be reminded, are shifting from one task or mindset to another, that difficulty with transitions, considering consequences and outcomes of actions, helping our youth to learn to seek appropriate attention and not inappropriate attention, helping our youth to appreciate how their behavior impacts others so that they can adjust that behavior, and also helping them to be less emotionally charged when they're responding because their frustration levels are so high, helping them to be less impulsive. So we finally arrived. We're now going to look and review the Center for Children and Young Adults vision, mission, and philosophy, keeping in mind that our tagline and motto is always the best is yet to come for the youth we serve. So here's the vision. Our vision is that the best is yet to come for all youth who have experienced homelessness and maltreatment, and that they each secure a permanent home with an appropriate caregiver or through independent living over age 18. The vision that an organization has is the big picture, what we ultimately want. We ultimately want our kids to find permanent homes with appropriate caregivers, or if they age out, permanent housing with permanent connections to people and resources and organizations in the community. So what's the mission? The mission is what we're trying to achieve by the work and the services that we do at the center. And the mission of CCYA is to provide safe and suitable housing, youth development activities, and comprehensive supportive housing services for at-risk homeless youth who've been abandoned, abused, neglected, and or sexually exploited. So one of the things we always tell people is the fact that the kids come to us and they are maintaining housing, safe and suitable housing, that right there isn't a goal achievement. Because before, they were not maintaining housing and were not in a safe situation. So part of our mission is always important to remember that safe and suitable housing is a big part of that. But then the youth development activities, helping the youth to develop so that they will be able to grow and developmentally achieve milestones, is also important. And comprehensive support is housing services. That's medical, dental, education, therapy. That's all the services that we build in around the safe and suitable housing that we provide. So moving into our CCYA philosophy, let's remember that we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, plus the spectrum of attitudes, plus the interaction model, plus the collaborative problem-solving model. All of these we have used to build and create our CCYA philosophy. So that our philosophy is actually grounded in tools, in evidence-based practices, in research, and grounded in the resources that are important to the industry in which we serve. There are many parts to the CCYA philosophy, so we're going to look at each part individually. The first statement of philosophy is that at CCYA we believe that youth in care who have experienced chronic and severe trauma need a therapeutic and nurturing environment in which to live, heal, and thrive. So we're trained to use that therapeutic versus exploitive interactions with youth so we can help them to grow and develop. We can meet their needs to help them achieve that self-actualization at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we're going to achieve this by partnering with mental health professionals in the community, which we're doing now. We even have them on site for easily accessible services. And we also know that innovative therapies from the HHS research and study are very important for our youth to succeed beyond our care and beyond foster care. So we want to always be seeing where we can utilize and implement innovative therapies like animal-assisted therapy, music therapy, horticulture therapy out in the garden, and movement therapy. Second, at CCYA, we believe that our youth need a support system that includes a long-term connection with at least one appropriate and caring adult. The HHS research states that aside from education, there are 3 factors that make kids in care who transition beyond care more successful than those who do not have these 3 factors. One of them, beyond education, is an appropriate and caring connection with at least one adult. And so that's important to us. We look to match youth with appropriate and caring individuals as mentors so that they can have that connection that will help guide them and achieve that. So that's one of the factors for the HHS study. We'll talk about the others as we hit them in our philosophy. At CCYA, we believe that all youth need to earn a high school diploma or a GED, as well as pursue higher education, vocational, and or work skills training. Under the McKinney-Vento Education for Wholeness Act, we are able to partner with Cobb County Schools and their Title I department to provide tutors to us on site after school every day. We are also able to help our kids to participate in college tours, SAT and ACT prep courses, life skills education, and as you all know, we have a GED homeschool on campus. All of our youth must be in an educational program if they have not earned a high school diploma or a GED. This is why when kids are getting suspended or refusing to go to school or refusing to join GED after they're not enrolled in school, that it's important that we sit down and we do a case staffing and a team meeting with caseworkers to let them know that this is a part of our philosophy and we just cannot let kids sit around campus and not be in school. So this is a requirement at CCYA. Once you earn your GED, once you earn your high school diploma, then we're going to help you to move into, if not a college program, a vocational program, some type of work skills or technical training. And that's important. It can even be a management training program at a job that they have. But we want to make sure that we're helping them to even achieve beyond just that diploma or GED. We also believe at CCYA that all youth need life skills education. And that education has to be designed to prepare the youth for a successful transition to adulthood. So by acquiring hard and soft skills through life skills workshops, some hands-on practice opportunities, and some community experiences, youth can improve their success in education, career, community living, self-care, and interpersonal relationships. We partner with a lot of individuals. Ron, our life skills instructor, does a great job making sure that we connect with these individuals, faith-based organizations, civic groups, and corporations to provide an array of life skills educational opportunities. And these are all organized around the 9 Ansel Casey life skills domains. And we have those icons hanging up in our buildings that we created for each of the domains so we can help our youth to focus on them and remember the areas that they're trying to achieve in. We also administer and utilize the Casey Life Skills Assessment. Life skills education is important. It can be as simple as going to the bank with a mentor and watching them deposit a check through the drive-thru. This is something that kids in homes get to experience and they get to see their parents or their foster parents or their guardians, doing that, but it's something that they would not learn if they're not living in that environment and with that guardian or caregiver. So we need to make sure that we're giving these life skills education opportunities, and some of them are much more simple than we may think that they are at first thought. At CCYA, we believe that all youth deserve a childhood that offers average teen experiences to promote healthy physical, cognitive, social, and emotional growth and development. We train our staff to employ reasonable and prudent parenting standards to help us achieve this, and we promote the empowerment of a youth Bill of Rights and Responsibilities that includes graduated independence planning. It also includes weekly extracurricular activities and enrichment activities to help our kids to experience average teen things so that they do not feel that being in care deprives them of that growth and development. But we also believe at CCYA that nutrition, preventive medical and dental care, and physical fitness are essential to the health and well-being of our youth. This is why we have our garden and farm organic produce and fresh eggs to the table through nutrition and agricultural education, and also some cooking classes. And we also want to ensure accessibility and transportation to medical and dental appointments. We want to promote opportunities for exercise, organized sports, and movement therapy. And we encourage our kids to join extracurricular activities, both those that we sponsor at the center as well as those at school and in the community. And last, but certainly not least, at CCYA, we believe our youth need positive reinforcement and reasonable related consequences. We believe that punitive or punishment-driven practices are not effective or appropriate for youth with mental health diagnoses who have experienced chronic and severe trauma, and the research in our practice shows these not to be effective anyway. For this reason, we use collaborative problem solving to teach lagging skills and respond to the challenging behaviors of youth. We also use our RCYCP teaching discipline module. Youth have to be involved in decision making about their lives. They have to be afforded the opportunity to build trust as well as make youthful mistakes in a safe environment. We don't hold kids in our own home to every little thing that they do, and so we have to make sure that the youth at the center are able to make those youthful mistakes and be in a safe environment. The youth at CCYA are our clients. We have to serve them as our clients. That's what we are paid at the center to do. That's what we are employed at the center to do, and that's what we are contracted by the state to do, to serve our clients. So we are required to handle their discipline differently than how we may choose to parent our own children. Our clients need a therapeutic approach. Our clients need to learn cognitive thinking and lagging skills, and our clients need that treatment, that therapeutic treatment. So it's important that we remember these things for our kids and that we all learn the collaborative problem-solving approach. So there you have it, the CCYA philosophy and the principles and models that go into creating it. The CCYA philosophy is very important. We must all work in accordance with this shared philosophy to ensure that we are all consistent and therapeutic in how we serve youth in our care. This philosophy is very important to our agency, and it is very important that we all understand it and learn it. And our board of directors has an expectation that this is the philosophy that we will all share and use together for our youth. Let me know if you have any questions about the CCYA philosophy. You can email me or buzz me on my extension or cell phone at any time. Thank you for taking this training. Please make sure that you follow up with Steve Yarish so you can fill out your form and get your credit time for this training.